I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Well, we have a new Prime Minister by a majority of 2-1 amongst Conservative Party members on a high turnout. Boris Johnson has won. He becomes our Prime Minister officially tomorrow. He gave a speech. We'll analyse that. I thought we saw some of the real Boris coming out, not perhaps the constrained one we saw during the campaign. And I'm here in Washington, D.C. I'm here for an organisation called Turning Point, a big youth student movement here in America, which has now started in the UK. And I'm speaking at this conference, as indeed is President Trump. And so I met with the president earlier on this morning. And of course, as ever, we talked about Brexit and we talked about Boris Johnson. And I asked the president, do you have a message for the British people on this day? Sure, he said. I think Boris will make a great Prime Minister. He brings much needed energy to the job. The last 3 years have been pathetic. I want him to work with you, Nigel, to get the Brexit deal done. So that was the message that I was to convey to you. To my surprise, a few moments later, on the stage, he said this.
Nigel's someplace in this audience. Where's Nigel? Where is he? Nigel Farage. He's here someplace. I saw him. I said, what is he doing here? He's a little older than most of you. Where is he? Nigel. I'll tell you what, he got 32% of the vote from nowhere over in UK. Nigel, thank you, Nigel. I said, what's Nigel doing here? He's a little older than you folks.
A lot older.
But he did a great job, and I know he's going to work well with Boris. They're going to do some tremendous things.
So, to my total shame and embarrassment, I'd listened to the first 15 minutes or so of the president's speech and I thought, well, big security cordon, traffic, I've got to get across town. I want to deliver this message to LBC listeners and viewers from the president, and so I kind of wasn't there when he called my name out, so I've got some apologies to give. But you can hear the message that's coming from the president. He thinks that Boris and the Brexit party need to work together. That's his view. It's something that Boris says he doesn't want to do. And from my perspective, I find it rather difficult at the moment to trust much that is being said by the Conservative Party. Well, back to Boris. He won comfortably. Let's listen to the earlier part of his speech today, in which he talked about the divisions that have been caused between Remainers and Brexiteers.
At this pivotal moment in our history, we again have to reconcile two noble sets of instincts, between the deep desire for friendship and free trade and mutual support in security and defence between Britain and our European partners, and the simultaneous desire, equally deep and heartfelt, for democratic self-government in this country.
Absolutely.
And of course there are some people who say that they're irreconcilable and it just can't be done. And indeed I read in my Financial Times this morning, devoted reader that I am. Seriously, it's a great British brand.
That's real.
I read in my Financial Times this morning that no incoming leader has ever faced such a daunting set of circumstances, it said. Well, I look at you this morning and I ask myself, do you look daunted? Do you feel daunted? I don't think you look remotely daunted to me. And I think that we know that we can do it, and that the people of this country are trusting in us to do it, and we know that we will do it. And we know the mantra of the campaign that has just gone by. In case you've forgotten it, you probably have. It is deliver Brexit, unite the country, and defeat Jeremy Corbyn. And that is what we're going to do.
Well, all very positive stuff and upbeat, but I do think when it comes to the use of that word daunting, I think he does face some very daunting problems. But before I get to that and my thoughts on it, let's just remind ourselves that Boris is making it clear that we're going to leave on the 31st of October. Let's hear him again.
And I know some wag has already pointed out that deliver, unite and defeat was not the perfect acronym for an election campaign, since unfortunately it spells dud. But they forgot the final E, my friends. E for Energize. And I say to all the doubters, dude, We are going to energize the country. We're going to get Brexit done on October the 31st. We're going to take advantage of all the opportunities that it will bring in a new spirit of can-do. And we are once again going to believe in ourselves and what we can achieve. And like some slumbering giant, we are going to rise and ping off the guy ropes of self-doubt and negativity with better education, better infrastructure, more police, fantastic full fibre broadband sprouting in every household. We are going to unite this amazing country and we are going to take it forward. I thank you all very much for the incredible honour that you have just done me. I will work flat out from now on with my team that I will build, I hope, in the next few days to repay your confidence. But in the meantime, the campaign is over and the work begins. Thank you all very much.
Well, that was Boris, and he was very upbeat and jolly and laughy and jokey, and that's the Boris that we expect to see, reiterating that we are leaving on or by the 31st of October. But I think he does face a few problems. Somebody who was in the room that earlier on saw that speech is the Tory MP for Ribble Valley, Nigel Evans, and of course he's a leading member of the 1922 committee. Nigel, good evening.
Hello.
Nigel, hello, that I can hear you, absolutely. So, are you feeling upbeat and joyous as Boris was on that podium today?
The funny thing is he talked about energising, and that's one thing that he did do. When he walked into the room, he got a standing ovation with cheers, and then about 35 minutes of the meeting where he gave a short speech, but then answered about 20 questions, and only one. You talked about him wanting to leave on October the 31st. Twice he mentioned it in his speech to the 1922 committee, and there was over 200 people crammed in committee room 14. And he said everybody in this room would want us to leave by October the 31st, and there was applause for that too. And he's got to do that. He knows he's got to deliver that, otherwise you and your boys will be coming for us.
Well, I think that's true, Nigel, but isn't the reality that he's got a divided party? You've had resignations already, perhaps not surprisingly. You've got a parliament that is fundamentally Remain in the way that it thinks. Isn't the only real way he can do this to call a general election and to get a proper majority? And I understand at that meeting he rejected that idea.
Yeah, he doesn't want an early general election, but my own view is there will be a general election earlier than in the year 2022, which is when the next fixed-term parliament says that the next election must be held by. But he wants to deliver Brexit first by October the 31st. And so all his energy is going to be devoted to that. Now, you've just mentioned President Trump.
Yeah.
And I suspect that if they've not had that phone conversation yet, it won't be long off. And when those two start chatting, as you know, Nigel, you know the Europeans better than I do. I've never met Michel Barnier, but you have. And you know how awkward he is. He never believed that Theresa May would leave the European Union without a deal, so he knew that he could give her as rubbish a deal as he wanted, and she would come back to the House of Commons and try and get it through, which of course she tried 3 times and failed 3 times. He will know that Boris Johnson is a different kettle of fish, and the reason why is because he believes in the mission, just like you do, just like I do. And we want to leave the European Union, and Michel Barnier knows that. And he will also know that if it needs be, we will leave without that deal. And that's why I believe that a deal is more likely than ever now, because we import £95 billion net of goods from the European Union into the United Kingdom. They still want to sell us their cars and their champagne and their bulbs and flowers and cheese and all that sort of stuff. We'll still want to buy them, and they'll want to do it as hassle-free, frictionlessly free as they possibly can. And you remember as well, Nigel, that when Boris talked about, come on guys, we got a man on the moon 50 years ago. Are you saying that we can't sort out the problem between Northern Ireland and Ireland using new technology? You and I know it can be done.
But there's just 100 days, Nigel. There's just 100 days. And, you know, with the best will in the world, if he tries to reheat Mrs May's new European treaty, there's still a big chance that Parliament will reject it. I'm putting it to you that the most likely way we leave on October the 31st is through a general election.
Yeah, I still don't accept that, and you are right, by the way. If you try and reheat I say Michel Barnier has got this withdrawal agreement super glued to his hand, and I don't know why, because it is as dead as Theresa May's premiership. Her premiership finishes tomorrow, shortly after she does the last Prime Minister's questions, and she travels to Buckingham Palace to say thank you, Mom, I now recommend you send for Boris Johnson. So it's pointless them talking about the withdrawal agreement in Brussels. Even Jeremy Hunt said that it was dead. They've got to move on. They've got to look for something different. And of course, Michel Barnier will know as well, irrespective of the maths in Parliament, you're right, 3/4 of them did vote Remain, that the fact is that Boris had to fight an election against Jeremy Hunt by the members of the Conservative Party throughout the country. And he got 2/3 of them voting for him. So he has not just been anointed like Theresa was, he has literally been endorsed by the Conservative Party membership. And my simple message to those who aren't quite on the same wavelength as Boris Johnson, people like Alan Duncan and a few others, it's like this. Your association members voted. They had the opportunity to vote in an election. They have voted Boris Johnson in as the next leader of the Conservative Party and our next Prime Minister. Now get behind him, because the choice now isn't between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt. It's between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn. And that's where the focus of their mind should be.
Now, interestingly, you mentioned President Trump, and he, by the way, praises Boris's energy. He really likes it.
Yeah.
But what Trump has said to me today is, well, of course, it's obvious. Johnson working with Farage would be unstoppable. Do you see any circumstances in which the Conservative Party would talk to the Brexit Party? I mean, the Brexit Party might not want to talk to them, but do you think it is a realistic prospect or not?
Well, that's one of the questions, really, I asked myself as well, Nigel, and I really don't know the answer to it, because you and I know that there are only two parties in this country now who are for delivering what the people voted for in 2016, and that is Boris Johnson's Conservative Party and the Brexit Party. They're the only two parties now. We've seen the Lib Dems change to a party of Remain, and even Joe Swinson, their new leader, today said that even if there was a second referendum and they voted to leave, she wouldn't accept the result. I mean, that's absolutely bonkers.
How liberal, how democratic.
Yeah. Well, they're certainly not liberal and they're not democratic. So you've got that. And then, of course, the Labour Party has morphed from the party that said in the 2017 election that they would deliver what the people voted for at the referendum, now into a party of reform and Remain, and that's exactly where they are. And so when we're talking about going into the next election, I suppose the solution to me about this, Nigel, is whether we've left or not. And my own view is that all the energy from Boris is going to be into leaving the European Union by the 31st of October. If we do that, then if we've done it in a clean way, I suspect the raison d'etre for the Brexit Party goes, because what you are there to do is to basically be the conscience of politics in Parliament in Westminster today, and tell people you've got to deliver what the people voted for. And at the moment, we've failed to do that. That's why we were hammered in those useless EU elections the other day. That's why we were hammered in the local elections, and we will be hammered at a general election if we haven't left the European Union.
No, I do agree with that. And finally, Nigel Evans, you are, as I am, a devoted Brexiteer. You're right behind Boris Johnson, absolutely supporting him fully. Is there a big job for Nigel Evans MP?
Oh gosh, no. Do you know, I'm really happy to be supporting Boris from the backbenches. There's going to be a lot of disappointed people in the next 48 hours. Because he can't give a job to everybody who supported him. Don't forget, he got 160 people backing him in the last vote that's there. And now, of course, everybody's, apart from the odds and sods, are born-again Boris people.
Oh, yes.
So he can't please everybody. There's going to be a few wounded and bruised people over the next 48 hours. So if I was Boris, whatever job that he was going to give me, foreign secretary or whatever it was going to be, that he must have clearly been on his mind. I tell you what, give it to somebody that he needs to buy into the tent.
Very good. Okay, Nigel Evans, thank you very much indeed. Well, a joyous Nigel Evans believing it's all going to happen, but let's face reality. He faces a daunting task. He really does. He basically hasn't got a majority in Parliament. If they lose the by-election next week in Brecon and Radnor, which I believe they will, his majority will be down to 1. He's got a split party. You've seen resignations over the course of the last 48 hours, and quite a lot of other Ken Clarks and others on the backbenches that will do whatever they can to stop Brexit from happening, and basically a Remain Parliament. I don't see how he can do this without a general election. You tell me what you think about that. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 6:18 and time for the news headlines. with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson will replace Theresa May as the new Prime Minister tomorrow after winning the Conservative Party leadership contest in a convincing victory over Jeremy Hunt. Mr Johnson's received congratulations from the US President Donald Trump, the Irish Taoiseach and also EU Brexit negotiators who've said they will work with him to facilitate the ratification of the withdrawal agreement. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn is demanding a general election, saying the incoming Prime Minister hasn't won the support of the whole country. LBC weather, many areas of the UK staying dry tonight. Thunderstorms in the south, though, moving northeastwards, a low of 14 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and a broken down box van on the anti-clockwise M25 before 12 at the M3 is partly blocking the carriageway with queues back to the M4 at junction 5. An earlier broken down van has left clockwise delays from 22 at London Colney to Potters Bar at 24. There's a broken down car out of town on the A13 at Lodge Avenue flyover. That's causing queues back to Canning Town. Now expect delays around Hampton Court this evening. An accident has shut Upper Sunbury Road. Creek Road in Deptford is still closed with an accident, and on the trains, Greater Anglia and Stansted Express have delays and cancellations at Liverpool Street. It's due to a problem with the track caused by the hot weather. London Overground can't run from Romford to Upminster, and on the Tube there are severe delays on the District, Hammersmith and City and Circle lines.
This is LBC.
My mum can't remember my first steps. She can't remember walking me to my first day at school or watching me walk down the aisle. She doesn't even remember I'm her daughter. But I do. That's why I'm walking the Alzheimer's Society Memory Walk for my mum. Join me to help defeat dementia. Sign up at memorywalk.org.uk. Who will you walk for? memorywalk.org.uk.
The battle for PM Boris Johnson, the next Prime Minister. Follow it live on LBC.
Thomas Edison. He's months away from lighting up the world.
The man who controls electricity.
Westinghouse is placing a bid.
Edison Electric, it has to be. Can change the whole world.
Automation, transportation, communication, the future.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Vultures in every venture. Gotta keep them away.
Michael Shannon.
I have the better system.
Nicholas Hoult.
Nikola Tesla. I fix problems for idiots. There's never going to be anything named Tesla again.
And Tom Holland.
His current kills people.
Only because you said it would.
The Current War in cinemas Friday.
This year we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free, and you could be that lucky winner. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Is 2019 the most confusing year ever? Fake lips speaking fake news, eating fake meat. Let's put it to a vote. After vote, after vote. But are we being listened to by our home devices?
No.
They don't have the answer. Get past the confusion with the Confused.com Beat Your Renewal Quote Guarantee. If you can't beat your renewal quote, you get the difference plus £20. Don't be confused. Be Confused.com. T's and C's online, single annual policies only.
The perfect day. Very rarely we're lucky enough to enjoy it. When everything seems to be going just right. Like when you beat the queue for your morning bacon butty. Your lunchtime banter goes viral, and then to top it off, the delivery for your latest project actually arrives on time. It's just like when you're driving the new Ford Ranger. Available with a 1-ton load capacity, 2-litre bi-turbo EcoBlue engine, and selectable driving modes. You'll let nothing stand in your way. Not even the Great British Summer. Discover more. Search New Ford Ranger. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Backbone of Britain.
Looking for your perfect kitchen? Visit roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Live from Washington. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
We've got a new Prime Minister. It's Boris Johnson. He tells us very, very clearly we must be more upbeat and optimistic. And I rather liked that part of what he had to say today. But he also tells us we'll be leaving the European Union on the 31st of October, if not before. Can he deliver? Does he have the courage to deliver? That's really the question that I'm asking myself. I know I get by text. I don't know whether Boris will deliver. It feels like we're moving on from the desperately depressing era of paralysis under Theresa May, who's all but sucked the life out of our wonderful country, says Michael. Well, Trump used the word pathetic about the last 3 years to me this morning. Can he deliver? Will he do it? Tim is calling from Hatfield. Good evening, Tim. I understand that you're a Conservative Party member.
That's right. Good evening, Nigel. Nice to speak to you. Yes, I am. And I did vote for Boris. And within a few hours of the announcement and starting to see the first appointment of the chief whip as a Remainer, I'm starting to have a terrible sinking feeling in my stomach that I've been taken and 90,000 Conservative voters have been taken for suckers. Because let me explain why. The last time I spoke to you was actually January of this year. I talked about WTO 24. And he mentions that, and I was hoping when he meant a no deal, we'd go to October the 31st, call their bluff, force them into a WTO 24 position of which there'd be no disruption to trade, and then we negotiate a trade agreement, but we have left. I would expect him to have a cabinet of tough Brexiters. You're going into one of the toughest periods in British history. And yet I see no mention, John Redwood, Ian Duncan-Smith, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Steve Baker, Mark Francois. There's no mention of these people in the press. He won't even work with you, Nigel.
It's a bit early yet, Tim, isn't it?
It is a bit early, Nigel, but I have a very bad feeling. I think what he's going to do, I think he's going to tweak this withdrawal agreement in a few places of which Parliament disagreed with. And considering that 3/4 of Parliament are Remain, he's going to tweak it to such an extent that it will get through. And then he will call an election in early November. So he will essentially make the Brexit Party, in his eyes, redundant because we've now have signed a withdrawal agreement. We are tied, and he will stop the Liberal Democrats because we don't need a second vote. I think this is a strategy, and I'm beginning to realise I think the UK nation has been totally conned. So, Nigel, I just plead with you, please stay around, because I'm telling you, if this is true, thousands upon thousands of Conservative supporters are not only going to come your way, they're going to fund your party, because this could be one of the greatest betrayals in history. I just have a very bad feeling.
Yeah, if he thinks that delivering Brexit in name only and us stuck into this appalling new treaty, that suddenly the whole world's going to start voting Conservative again, I think he misunderstands, Tim, just how much trust the party has lost already.
I absolutely agree. I just have a bad feeling. The people. If you're going into a very tough period, you want people who are going to be very strong-willed, very focused on what they want to do. They're going to get pressure from the media, from colleagues, from Parliament itself. They're going to have to be a very tight-knit unit. But there's a lot of. This is a very cabinet, very similar to Mrs May's, and I'm worried that Boris, he does have a reputation of backsliding, and I think he may have taken us. He may have been liberal with the truth, but we can only wait and see. I agree. I'm waiting for tomorrow night to see who goes into that cabinet. I'm just pleading, Nigel, please don't leave politics.
No, I understand that.
For the sake of this country, hang around.
I certainly will, Tim. Don't worry about that. But if, for argument's sake, you knew by the weekend that Jacob Rees-Mogg had become the Brexit Secretary, that John Redwood was the new Chancellor, Ian Duncan-Smith was the new Home Secretary, you might change your mind, Tim.
Absolutely, I would. Yeah, I would expect someone of Jacob Rees-Mogg's calibre to either be the assistant or the Brexit Secretary with Dominic Raab. If I was going into a tough negotiation like this, fighting for the life and soul of this country, you've got to have two people who will die by it, who live by it.
Tim,
you cannot have a weak cabinet.
I think your point that we will know the direction of Boris within 72 hours as a result of these appointments, I think you're absolutely on the money, Tim, and I've no doubt that on Sunday morning, when I'm on LBC between 10 and 12, we will be going through those appointments and working it out. And do call us back on Sunday, Tim. I'd love to get your updated view. And thank you for the call. Well, Tim there, who voted for Boris, is already beginning to think he might have been had. Colin is a new caller from Chester. Good evening, Colin.
Hello, Nigel. Thanks for taking my call.
Not at all. So, does Boris need, I think, without a general election, I don't see how he gets us out by the 31st of October, but my previous caller, Colin, thinks he'll rejig Mrs May's deal and somehow Parliament will support it.
I don't think he can call a general election because of the Fixed Term Parliaments Act. It has to be, that would be taken away from him. And
if the Labour Party, if he called a general election, and after all, Jeremy Corbyn's been calling for a general election for a long, long time, he probably would get 2/3 of Parliament to back it, wouldn't he?
I don't know. You wouldn't call the election back conference season, which would be the beginning of October. You call the general election, and then we have at least 6-week campaign. The law of the land is that we leave on the 31st of October. So the Parliament would be closed for the election. There wouldn't be any MPs to stop Brexit. So if they were to call an election before we Brexited, that would stop them trying to change the deal or vote on whatever.
Well, I think
there wouldn't have to be a parliament.
I mean, if he used the general election and used that period of time during which Parliament was prorogued to try and let the 31st of October run out of time, then he wouldn't get the majority in Parliament he needs to overturn the Fixed Term Parliaments Act. But if he was to call an election in September that was to be contested, let's say, on Thursday, October the 24th, I think Parliament would support it.
Well, why would he do that? I mean, he would be better off waiting until after conference season and let somebody from the opposition go for a no confidence vote. If he loses a no confidence vote, he has 14 days to form another government.
Yep.
If he's not able to form another government within 14 days, then the general election is called. So calling for a no confidence vote in October immediately takes the whole emphasis away from Brexit, and that will just come and go whilst Parliament is in complete uproar trying to sort out another election. Because the law of the land is that we leave on October the 31st. If there's no one there to stop it, and if Boris doesn't seek for an extension, because that has to come from the Prime Minister.
It does.
Then how is it going to stop? The Parliament.
Well, they'll bring him down, but Colin, they'll bring him down. His own party will bring him down if he tries to do that.
Yeah, they'll bring him down. Okay, they bring him down, and then there's a general election, 6-week campaign. It goes into November. We've already left.
Okay, well, Colin, for those of us that are Brexiteers, it's an optimistic assessment. I don't quite see it, but hey, I get what you're saying. I thank you very much indeed for the call. Nigel, am I stupid? Or did he use a friendly Remainer chief whip, or select a friendly Remainer chief whip, because a lever wouldn't get anywhere with intransigent MPs? I thought it was smart, says Andy from Virginia Water. Andy, I don't think who the chief whip is what really matters here. Who the Chancellor is, who the Attorney General is, who the Brexit Secretary is. These are the things that will really tell us the direction we're going in. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
President Trump has told the Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage that Boris Johnson will make a great Prime Minister. The LBC presenters told us on his show tonight, which is coming from Washington, the US leader personally said to him that he wants him to work with the new Tory party leader to get the EU withdrawal deal done. Donald Trump's called the last 3 years of negotiations with Brussels pathetic and praised Mr Farage's achievement in the recent European Parliament elections.
He got 32% of the vote from nowhere over in UK. Nigel, thank you, Nigel. I said, what's Nigel doing here? He's a little older than you folks.
A lot older.
But he did a great job, and I know he's going to work well with Boris. They're going to do some tremendous things.
Mr Johnson's been addressing Conservative MPs on the influential 1922 committee this afternoon following his landslide win over rival Jeremy Hunt and ahead of succeeding Theresa May tomorrow. But Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's demanded a general election so the public can pick the UK's next leader. LBC weather, many areas of the UK staying dry with clear periods tonight. Thunderstorms in the south and southwest moving northeastwards, a low of 14 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Joe Swinson, your leader of the Liberal Democrats. What's democratic about ignoring the result of the referendum?
We had this meaningless phrase, Brexit means Brexit.
Respectfully, Brexit means Brexit was post-referendum.
It was,
Theresa May's interpretation.
It was, but still pretty meaningless.
3 years ago.
I'm arguing for a democratic exercise for.
But what was 3 years ago then?
It was a democratic exercise,
we have another democratic exercise. How many democratic exercises are we going to do?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
LBC Business Hour with Ian Dale. Every Thursday evening from 8, answering questions from new startups to established companies.
When it comes to selling your startup business, nobody can actually have that passion that you've got for it yourself. For me, that's why the startup failure rate is high, because they don't know how to market and sell themselves, and if they don't sell, they don't have a business.
LBC Business Hour with Vodafone Business. Unlimited data plans specifically for small businesses. LBC.
Is 2019 the most confusing year ever? Fake lips, speaking fake news, eating fake meat. Let's put it to a vote. After vote, after vote. But are we being listened to by our
own devices?
No.
They don't have the answer. Get past the confusion with the Confused.com Beat Your Renewal Quote guarantee. If you can't beat your renewal quote, you get the difference plus £20. Don't be confused. Be Confused.com. T's and C's online, single annual policies only.
Renewing your tax credits is too important to forget. So here's an unforgettable reminder.
Renew your tax credits now. It's really, really important.
Time is running out. Renew your tax credits by the 31st of July or your payments will stop. Go to gov.uk/manage your tax credits.
Renew now!
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
The biggest cat in the world was longer than a cricket bat. Think that's big? Tonight, the Euro Millions jackpot is an enormous £15 million. 15 million! Now that's big.
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Washington, only on LBC.
Is Boris going to deliver? Are we going to leave on the 31st of October? Can it be done without a general election? I'm not so sure that it can. I really am not. And already, his first appointment of Chief Whip Mark Spencer causing controversy. Some of you think it's a very clever idea because you have a Remainer that can try and get some of the other people round. Others think it could be the beginning of a sellout. Certainly Nicholas Soames, a very keen Tory backbench Remainer, praises the appointment and thinks it's a good thing. Read into that whatever you will. Hi, Nigel. Boris won't have a general election as he knows other parties might win it, says Jackie from Watford. Well, yeah, but Paul on Facebook says, I wish Bojo would call a general election. He would destroy the Labour Party once and for all. And Anne on Facebook says, my gut feeling is he will let us down. I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt it. And Anne, I wish him well. I want him to succeed. I genuinely do. But my worry is twice he voted against that terrible new treaty. He told us it was awful, and at the third time of asking, he voted for it. And if he's just going to try and reheat that deal, that worst deal in history, I don't think it'll wash. And even if it did go through Parliament, it would still leave us trapped in parts of the European Union, and the agony, the arguments, the rancour would go on for years to come. Grant is a new caller from Peckham. Good evening, Grant.
Hello, Nigel. Lovely to speak to you for once.
Good to speak to you. So, are you pleased with Boris as PM?
Well, the jury's still out at the moment for me. But what I wanted to say to you, and while I've been holding on, you've had several conversations that have touched it, what I was going to say.
Go on.
What Boris has got to do, he's got to call you up, Nigel, yeah?
Yeah.
And the Brexit Party and the Conservatives have got to form a pact. A bit like he did with the Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives, with Cameron. And what
that was after an election, but yeah. Mm.
You would get all the Labour voters up north who feel they've been done. The Labour Party have backtracked, and the Labour voters up north feel betrayed. And they would vote for the Brexit Party. Boris has still got a soft spot with a lot of Tory voters, and he would get in. So if we voted all them MPs out who have betrayed their own members of the public who voted for them in the first place, if we could get a parliament where the Brexit Party and the Conservatives had the majority, then it's a whole different ballgame, Nigel.
Grant, I mean, that what you've just said is pretty much what Donald Trump thinks. That is how President Trump sees this.
He called me today, actually.
Well, he must have done. I mean, you're both speaking the same lines. It's obvious, But Grant, here's the problem. Many, in fact, most members of the upper echelons of the British Conservative Party absolutely hate me.
I bet they don't hate you as much as they hate Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh, no, they hate me more. They hate me more.
With UKIP, with the Tories.
Yeah, because they think it was all going swimmingly. I came along with UKIP, upset the apple cart, forced Cameron into offering a referendum that they never wanted to give, and it's given them years of agony. And I'm just not sure, Grant, that I'm just not sure they want to do a deal with me.
I think the public are calling for it, because normal people of the public who voted to leave, and now they're seeing their local MP saying, no, I want to remain. So whatever you wanted to do, I'm sorry, you elected me into this job, but I'm not going to, fulfil the wishes of the electorate. Them people, Nigel, if they won't vote Tory, they'll vote for you. So if the Conservatives don't embrace the Brexit party and start using their head and get a coalition, you know what? The Conservatives will suffer and you'll take their seats.
Right, Grant, listen, you've made your point very clearly. Thank you. Grant from Peckham saying there, come on, Conservatives, use your head. That's his view. Trevor in Thetford says, I agree, Nigel, there's going to be a general election in the autumn. Trevor, it is now way above 50% in my head probability that we will have a general election this autumn. I think it is becoming inescapable. How could Boris, as leader of the party, take us past the 31st of October, kick the can down the road for a further 6 months? It would be a disaster for his premiership, a catastrophe for Conservative votes in the country. And I just don't think he'll do that. I think he'd rather go to the public. He'll be forced into it. That's my view. But to do that, he'll have to be very brave. Does he have the courage? Kate is a new caller from St Albans. Good evening, Kate.
Good evening. I haven't heard a lot about it, because as soon as I heard he was going to be batting for that lot and on our side as our new Prime Minister, I heard a couple of snippets on the radio. And one of them was, we're going to have 21st century broadband.
Yes.
We're going to have policing on the streets. That's point two that hit home straight away. And then I heard about our education system. I didn't hear nothing at all about the NHS in crisis. How much money is going to go into that, Nigel? That's what concerns me. I'm at the peril of the NHS. I'm not a member of the NHS, a member of staff. They are at breaking point because the government's been selling it off for years. And now we've got this buffoon. Oh, I dread to think what's going to happen for me, my family and my grandchildren.
So you think Boris is... you genuinely think he's a buffoon, do you?
I honestly do. I think the rest of the world does. Wasn't he once the Foreign Secretary and he made a complete pillock of himself? Made us all embarrassed?
Well, there are some that would say that.
He's a joke. I'm 59 years old. I've seen some Prime Ministers in my time. I don't think anyone had beat the one that got us through the war, but I wasn't around then, having said that.
I believe you.
But he is a complete idiot. I don't know what to say. I'm almost ashamed to say he's our governor now, and this is where we're at. What concerns
Kate, come on, Kate. He's not a complete idiot. He won a scholarship to Oxford. He's a very clever man in some ways.
I'm sure he is, but when it comes to representing the country, come on, let's think again. I haven't heard him even mention the NHS crisis.
No, but he will. He will. Kate,
well,
he will. He will. But
if he can ride us through without, I like to visit. A lot of my family live overseas. And I'd like to see them. If we go out without a deal, we're a sinking ship here. They didn't even think about the Irish border. It's all after the door's shut, really, isn't it? I dread to think what's in store for us.
Kate, maybe as he went round the country in the referendum on a coach saying £350 million extra a week for the NHS, maybe that's what. And then you'll be happy, Kate, won't you?
I'll be delighted when we see the system back in where it should be, where we see the doctors and nurses and the whole systemic failings. They've been selling it off for years. They're trying to privatise our NHS.
Well, they've stopped. To be honest, look, the Labour Party did, under Tony Blair, sell off quite a large chunk of the NHS into private hands, something they seem to not even acknowledge today when you mention it. The pace of that has slowed down. Kate, I get your concern, but do you accept... vital that the NHS is to most people's lives in this country, do you accept that it's actually Brexit that is the defining political issue of the day?
I think we should have a general election very, very quick.
All right.
Now.
And who would you vote for, Kate?
Myself, honey. I think I could give them all the answers they need.
Well.
I could say something that would probably upset everybody on both sides of the pond now, so I think I'm just saying prayers now that he'll get us through. I'm going to put faith. I'm going to put a little bit of faith in the guy and just hope he ups his game. It's not right.
Right,
I hope to God we all come out the other end with good deals. The Irish border, the whole lot, we're all affected by it. Fingers crossed. And do say hello to President Trump when you're there.
I'll do my best. Kate, I will. I'll tell him later. I promise.
Another one.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. Bye. Even a fool wouldn't sign up to a treaty that didn't have an escape clause. Boris wouldn't do that, says Malcolm in Surrey. Well, Mrs May did it, despite all the things that she had previously told us. Mary is calling from Hemel Hempstead. Good evening, Mary.
Good evening, Nigel. I can't see how Boris... I'm a Conservative voter, by the way. Yes. I cannot see how Boris is going to get it out by October the 31st, because Parliament is about to go to recession. It won't come back until September. That literally gives about 30 days, say, and there's not even all of that because of party conferences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's a very valid point. I mean, literally, he's got 100 days between becoming Prime Minister and the 31st of October. And, yeah, as you say, there's recess, summer holidays, party conferences, all the rest of it. And yet, Mary, to listen to him this morning, he sounded very confident.
Yes, I know, and he made so many promises, and as I couldn't watch them all in the end. I couldn't stand it because I thought all these promises, and we know that, and understandably, he's not going to be able to keep them all, but why keep on making them when you know you're not going to be? Keep it to a minimum, like with your party. When I've joined the Brexit party now, but when your party makes its manifesto or whatever it is, keep it to a minimum, because at the moment we've got somebody who's making so many promises, and there might be one or two kept, and the rest will go by, and he won't be forgiven. And I'll tell you another thing why he won't be forgiven is the fact that, well, I don't know about he won't be forgiven, but people will make allowances for him because they're going to say that with all the people who are against him, well, it wasn't his fault we couldn't get out.
Well,
that's how I can see it going for him.
Mary, my view is he's going to have to be incredibly brave and call a general election. I don't see any other way. Mary, I thank you for your call. Matt says to me on Facebook, Boris will promise the earth and, like May, deliver little. Pat says Boris needs to get Brexit done and dusted and move on to making Britain great again. That would be a very Trumpian line, wouldn't it, if he came out with it? You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson will replace Theresa May as the new Prime Minister tomorrow after winning the Conservative Party leadership contest in a convincing victory over Jeremy Hunt. Mr Johnson's received congratulations from the US President Donald Trump, the Irish Taoiseach and EU Brexit negotiators, who've said they will work with him to facilitate the ratification of the withdrawal agreement. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn is demanding a general election, saying the incoming Prime Minister hasn't won the support of the whole country. LBC weather, many areas of the UK staying dry with clear spells tonight. Thunderstorms in the south moving northeastwards, a low of 14 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and the anti-clockwise M25 is down to just 2 lanes with a broken down van before the M3 at junction 12. There are queues back to the M4 at junction 15. 1 lane is closed out of town on the A12 at the Lee interchange with an accident that's causing queues back to Bow. Creek Road in Deptford remains closed after an accident near Creekside, and in Dorking the A24 is still shut with a serious accident at the A25 Reigate Road. Onto the trains now. Due to a problem with the track outside Liverpool Street Station, Greater Anglia and Stansted Express are warning of delays and cancellations. South Eastern have delays of an hour between Sevenoaks and Tunbridge, and on the Tube there are severe delays on the Hammersmith City Line and the Circle Line.
This is LBC.
50 years ago, we made a remarkable moment in history when man landed and walked on the moon for the first time. It's amazing what we can do when we think beyond limits. That's why Vodafone are giving small businesses what they need to discover their full potential with their new unlimited 5G data plans. Plus, with the OneNet virtual landline, you can be online anywhere. Go beyond limits and see what your business can achieve. Search Vodafone Business Unlimited.
Hey, you know what they say, go big or go home. So get yourself to Big Motoring World for up to 2,000 used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, VWs, Nissans, Fords, Vauxhalls, Peugeots, Fiats, Mitsubishis, Citroens, Hondas. Oh, I know that's a big list, but I already told you, go big or go home. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk or find them minutes from the M25. Hit it, ladies.
Big Motoring World. This year we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free, and you could be that lucky winner. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Would you and your business benefit from a personal approach from your accountant? At Barnes Rofe, of course, our partners have the technical skills needed to offer you first-class audit, tax and accounting advice. But most importantly, we'll work closely with you to help your business grow long-term. Perhaps it's time to see what we can do for you. Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
There are few greater joys in life than a sumptuous hot bath. Time to let the stresses of the day just melt away. Unless your plumbing goes. That's a recipe for a meltdown. But Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable. So if you need a plumber or other professionals in their trade, just relax. Trusted Trader are only a click away.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Live from Washington, call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, Boris is very confident he can do it. It's all going to be fine. Let's be optimistic and we'll be out by the 31st of October. But how? Denise says to me on Facebook, no general election. Boris needs to focus on getting us out. But Denise, the point I'm making is I don't see how he gets us out without a general election. I just don't believe this Parliament is going to let him do it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we need new men and women in Parliament that represent where the country really is on this issue. Paul is calling from Warrington. Good evening, Paul.
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for taking my call again. I've been on to you once before.
You have, I know. Nice to hear from you again.
Yeah, my view on it is the election will happen. The general election will happen because Labour will force it and Liberal will back them. But where the fun will start is you won't just have Labour and Liberal may think they'll get something on that side, but what they're not taking into consideration, if you're up and going, the Brexit party will be going. UKIP are still fighting towards it. They will rise because people will slide that way, whether you like them or whether you don't. And I think you're going to find Labour and Conservative will get an utter battering. I think Liberal will drop down. I think they've sank themselves by saying what they've said is we'll totally leave. But the country now is 3 years on. It needs people who can run the country. And it's irrelevant whether educated or whatever they are. They're obviously not that well educated. They're not interested in the people. They've got their own simple views. Nigel?
Paul, I'm just thinking, does Boris have the courage to be our leader?
No. I said that last time to you. Boris slips lines. He plays on the fence. He plays both sides of the court.
Well, if
he wants to be placed to one side, then he sneaks in and out of...
But with 100 days to go, he simply can't do that, can he?
He won't be able to do it. It's exactly what you're saying. A general election. Cordon, like Cordon said, come on today. He will call a general. He'll call a vote no confidence.
Well, he said he would call a vote of no confidence, but he didn't say when, and it didn't sound like this week. But Paul, you like me think a general election is coming, don't you?
Yeah, there's no ifs or buts. I think you'll find it'll come within a month. That's my view on it.
Well,
I think within a month to 6 weeks, you'll find out because Boris will be in. He'll be in Parliament. He'll be deciding what he'll do, and I think because he'll have more Brexiteers in there. The Brexiteers will be pushing it more, and that'll antagonise the likes of Labour and Liberal.
Yeah.
So they'll want to stop it.
Yeah, we'll see. Paul, thank you. Now I get this from Brian Rotherham. Here's Farage running his gob off again about Boris, and the man hasn't even started. His friend Donald has been crucified 24/7 by the media, yet he's been brilliant for his country. Typical British people talking themselves into self-doubt. Have some faith. Brian, I want to have faith. I do wish him well. Don't misunderstand me. But when the man twice votes against Mrs May's new European treaty and on the third time votes for it, please allow me to have some doubts. Carl is a new caller from Poole in Dorset. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, Nigel. My point is this, for Boris to succeed, he's got to be a strong leader. We've had no strong... I'm 67. We've not had a strong leader in this country since I was a kid. Now, Theresa May has gone cap in hand to Europe, trying to get a deal. Well, I'm sorry, if Boris is to get a deal, he's got to set the deal. We offer Europe the deal we want. Right. If they don't like that deal, then we pull out without a deal. And he should make it clear to the public that he's put a deal forward to them and they don't accept it. Europe don't want England, don't want the UK to leave. They definitely don't want you. The reason being, our 39 billion will be then set between probably France and Germany. They don't want us to leave. They're going to make it as hard as they can.
Well, of course they are, and they fear the whole thing falling to bits. In fact, in line, Carl, with what you're saying, Paolo from Cheam sent me this by text. He said, my advice to Boris would be to keep at arm's length from Barnier and his cronies. Don't go chasing a deal. Place our own UK Rottweiler negotiator in place between him and the EU. Give him a choice. Give him a choice. Free trade deal or the hardest possible Brexit. That'll do the trick. That's your kind of thinking as well, yeah?
We import far more from Europe than we export.
Well, we do.
When they lose us, they're going to lose a really good export market.
90 billion. That's the
market.
deficit. 90 billion's the deficit. It's a huge deficit, and you can argue there are 5 million jobs in Europe that do depend to some extent on trade arrangements with the UK. So we've got some very strong cards here, Carl, but Mrs May never played them, did she?
She was a Remainer. She never played any cards. She's been cap in hand to Europe. We want Boris to be strong. Before October, offer them the deal we want. And we can be open to negotiation on the deal he wants. He'd be respected for being a strong leader then.
Carl, I'd love to see that. Of course. But it still could be that he won't get support from the British Parliament, and in those circumstances, he would have to go back to the country, wouldn't he?
Another point, Nigel, going back to the country, I keep hearing this people's vote all the time.
Oh,
We've had the people's vote. We've had the people's vote. The people voted out. But unfortunately, democracy is now finished in this country because our parliament has not accepted what the people want.
Well, in the end, Carl, they will have to do what we want. We haven't changed our minds, and in the end, Carl, the Brexiteers are going to win. I promise you. I thank you very much indeed for your call. Now, Caroline says, why are MPs going on holiday? I fear for the future of our country, and I'm worried for our youth. There is a point, Caroline. With just 100 days to go, perhaps they should shorten the recess. It may not be popular with some, but I think the country would say, well, do you know what? That's not a bad idea. Jim is a new caller from Newcastle. Good evening to you, Jim.
Hello, Nigel. Hello. Thanks for taking my call.
Not a bit. So, is Boris going to do the business, in your opinion?
I hope so, but the thing that I don't understand is why they're frightened of a general election, because Labour are dead in the water. I'm an ex-Labour voter and now a Brexit Party member.
Yep.
And it's just the fact that everybody, the constituencies in the north of England voted to leave.
Yes.
And these people are going against their will. I've got Ian Mearns up here, and I just think, no, I've had enough now. And the Labour Party, to me, are just liberals in sheep's clothing. They're just trying to drive towards a European superstate that nobody wants.
So, Jim, this should be a big opportunity for Boris then, shouldn't it, really?
A massive opportunity. But I think you'll have to make a coalition with yourselves.
Well, this is what Donald Trump thinks, yeah. This is what President Trump thinks, Jim, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that the world is changing, the pendulum's swinging, so to speak. I'm a working man, I'm a tradesman, Nigel. And at the end of the day, we've been treated like commodities for years since we joined the European Union, moved about. And it needs to change.
As a tradesman,
they're not listening.
Jim, as a tradesman, I presume you meet lots of people every day, do you?
Yes.
And honestly, how many people would you say that you meet feel as angry as you do about this?
Lots of people. Lots of people now are just saying enough is enough. We need to leave. What we want, and this is a basic premise of it, I want to vote for somebody that is responsible or is accountable to me, not blaming Europe for it. Do you mean
that you believe in democracy, Jim?
Oh, totally. One man, one vote. And the one thing that irritates the life out of us, if I could say, is Ian Blackford from the SNP, where he never ever mentions the Scottish fisheries. They will never want to leave the UK if the Scottish fisheries get their industry back, which will be a massive boon for the
well, as it would for you. You know, out of North Shields, if 200 miles of that North Sea was ours to manage, there'd be a lot of jobs in the northeast of England, wouldn't there? And I'm with you. But Jim, do we have policy? Is Boris strong enough to take back British fisheries?
I hope so, but I think the general election is a route. Do you know what I mean? Because if we have a referendum, we'll still vote to leave, I believe, because people are so angry.
So do I.
Yeah.
So, Jim, really, you agree with me? If Boris is brave, says, look, we've got to remain a parliament, they're standing in our way, I'm going direct to you, the British people, it's you against the political class, they'd vote for him, he'd win a big majority with a Brexit party alliance. That's your position, yeah?
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
totally,
interesting.
Totally.
Jim, thank you.
Can I say one
quickly,
more thing before you go? Yeah, I appreciate that you're putting us to make your policies. You know, the belief in that is
this is the idea.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this is the idea that the Brexit Party is going to be an online platform and people vote, and that's what we're going to try and do. Jim, thank you, everybody. A fascinating day. I'll be back tomorrow evening at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick, but up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Coming up over the next 3 hours, well, it won't surprise you to know there is really only one subject tonight, isn't there? It is the election of Boris Johnson as leader of the Conservative Party, and tomorrow he becomes our next Prime Minister. So much to talk about. We are going to have a sort of semi-normal news hour. Lots of people to get their reaction on what's happened. Then after 8 o'clock, it'll be your turn. Want to hear what you think of the events of the day. Andrea Leadsom, former leader of the House of Commons, is with us for the first 2 hours.